Good morning and welcome to the deck of the Swamp Duck. Today I'm going to be changing the solar setup on the boat. At the moment I've got two small solar maintainers that are just there to keep the battery topped up whilst it's sitting in the marina, but they don't provide very much in the way of power for using things like the fridge and a heater when I'm out cruising. So I've now bought a 120 watt solar panel which should fit fairly snugly on top of the boat. So that's what I'm going to do today, is to change it over. So the first thing I've got to do is to disconnect all the old solar stuff and remove it. Right, so the first thing I'm going to have to do is to disconnect the two solar maintainers, and they're just joined on that, so I can disconnect them and then I can start to remove the wiring. Right, so one thing I'm going to have to take off is this very small panel here, which just powers these little fairy lights on the side. So I'm going to move them and put them on the side of the hatch. So I'm going to have to remove these two solar maintainers, which were chained on. So this is the 120 watt solar panel, and it's going to be a tight fit on here, and I'm not quite sure how I'm going to fit it yet, so it's a case of making the best of the fitments that I've got. Okay, so this is where it's going to sit, just resting on the rail, but it's going to be lifted up with some brackets so that we can still access the use of the rail. Okay, so that's the solar panel installed as best I can. I know somebody is bound to pick me up on this, but in an ideal world this should be at an angle, and the idea is that you get that at 90 degrees with the sun. But you can see there's a very limited amount of room here, and whilst it's moored up in the marina, it's actually, the boat is facing south, so it would need to be on a tilt like that, and that would be fine. But when the boat is moved down to the canal, it's going to be the sun is going to be coming from this direction, so it would mean that I would have to tilt it that way. And also it would be unwise to leave the panel tilted and go away and leave it, just because it's going to act as a sail, and the wind could get underneath it and pull it off. So I know that's not the ideal, but that's probably the best that I can achieve at the moment. So having put the panel on the roof, I've done that first because it looked earlier as though it was going to rain, so I wanted to get that done first. So the next thing to do is to sort out the connections to the batteries. Since I last did a vlog about the power on the battery, there are 3 batteries on the boat. Starter battery, which is 73 amp hours, and then there are 2 leisure batteries, both 105 amp hours, so that's a total of 283. But you need to divide that by 2, so you only use 50% of the battery power, so you never let the batteries go below 50%. So that gives me 141.50 amp hours. Now the new solar panel is a 120 watt, and the average sunshine hours in the Midlands throughout the year, based on historical data that goes back quite a few years, the average sunshine hours is 4.1. So I've based all my calculations on 4.1. So what you do is you take the wattage, 120 watts of the solar panel, and you multiply that by 4.1, which gives you a wattage of 492 watts per day. Now from that you have to take away 30%. That's to account for the voltage which is used up in the wiring, and the loss of voltage because of the angles of the panel, that kind of thing. So you take off 30%, so that gives me 344.4 watts, and if you change that to amp hours, that's 28.7 amp hours. One thing I'm going to try and do is to keep one of the small solar maintainers, so when the boat is moored up for a long period, it can literally just be sitting in the window, and if that's there for 4.1 hours, the wattage on that is 6, so that gives 24.6. take away 30% is 17.22 watts. So if you divide that by 12 volts, that gives you 1.43 amp hours. So you can see the difference between having the maintainer and the solar panel. solar panel provides 28.7 amp hours, whereas the maintainer is 1.43 amp hours. So in total I should have 171.63 amp hours when the boat is sitting stationary. In terms of output, the main things I'm going to be using is a fridge. When I say fridge, it's a cool box. It uses 46 watts, which is 3.83 amp hours, and a small heater, a bar, one of these bar heaters, which is 80 watts, which is 6.66 amp hours. So we should be able to run the fridge and have this heater on when it's required for a reasonable amount of time without charging the battery with the engine. When the engine is running, it's a 25 horsepower engine, and if you convert that to kilowatts, it's 18.64. And if you base that on, say, 7 hours of cruising, that would give you another 130 watts, which is 10.87 amp hours. So I'm hoping that once this has all been installed, there should be plenty of electricity to power what I want it to power, and for as long as I need it. And the idea is that once the boat is being moved onto the canal system with some heat inside and a little bit more electricity, it's going to extend my cruising season. So this is the solar panel controller, which I'm going to site about here, and the first thing I have to do is to run 2 wires from here to the leisure batteries. So I need a positive and a negative, and that's a fairly straightforward connection. So I'm going to site that just there. Okay, so I've now got a positive and a negative wire from the controller to the leisure batteries. The leisure batteries are set up in parallel, so I've got the positive to one of the batteries and the negative to the other battery, and then those are obviously connected between to put them in parallel. So there we are, we have the installation completed, and I've just come back over to the boat the day after I put it in, and already it's having a good effect upon the power in the battery. Check my little battery indicator, it's well into the green, which means there's plenty of power in the battery. And I've got the solar maintainer in the window, and that just takes care of the starter battery, just puts a little charge into that. Hope you found this useful. It was quite a simple task to actually put the solar setup in, so if anybody is thinking of doing, don't be put off by it. It's not too technical. So thank you for watching, and I hope next time we can have a cruising video. But woke up this morning and the River Trent is already back into the flood, so we'll have to wait and see. Thank you for watching. Bye for now.